The danger isn't AI becoming human. The danger is humans becoming passive and just giving up. The real skill of the next decade is staying awake while others are using powerful tools. You need to join them. AI isn't replacing people, it's compressing skill. And if you don't adapt to compressed skill, if you don't get replaced by a robot, you will get replaced by someone who learned how to use one. Today, we're going to walk through 10 things Gen X needs to understand about AI, not from a hype perspective, not from a panic perspective, but from a pattern recognition perspective. We've lived through Cold War tension, the internet explosion, 9/11, smartphones, the dot-com crash, 2008, COVID. Every one of these moments separated the loud reactors from the quiet adapters. This feels like another reset, AI in the workspace. So instead of arguing about whether AI is good or bad, we're going to talk about leverage, adaptability, identity, and what actually matters when skills become compressed. Troy, what do you think about the AI thing so far?
I am going to be one of these silent observers going, hey, what is this all about? It's interesting.
It is interesting, and I must say, today is your 60th birthday. So everybody out there in the Gen X community, we have our first in our family Gen X to cross the 60 line. I cross it later this year. Happy birthday, Troy.
Thank you. Feels good to be 6-0.
6-0. Right on, man. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Gen X Transplant Bros today doing our Free Will Burning podcast as we usually do today. We're not going to be talking about music. Next week, we have another one of our former bandmates on. But this week, we're going to get back to just talking about Gen X issues here, AI in particular, in the workspace. There's a ton of information out there because a report came out talking about everybody's going to get taken over by their job by 2027. All this fear mongering that we usually see around such topics. And so today, we're just going to look at 10 things that we need to think about, from our opinion, of this whole Gen X community and AI. So first up, we have AI is not the internet. This is not 1996, 1995, 1998, 2004, whenever you finally caught online. This is a completely different animal. The internet gave us a voice. AI gives us a brain. This isn't fast email. This is strategic leverage. Troy, you've already said, what's going on with all this, but do you recall back in the late 90s when the internet came along, and granted, your job might not have meant that you had to go there, but you were able to get by that doing what you did the rest of the way. How does it feel today looking at this kind of reset?
Oh, it's kind of intimidating to me. Because when the computers first came out, I was a draftsman we had to learn computer drafting when they had the green cursor and all that. And I never wanted to buy a computer. And I don't think I got my first computer until 2000. And it was something you absolutely had to have, and also a cell phone. And I think it's pretty essential now to learn AI. I don't think we can do without it.
No, not in the workplace. Depending. And we'll talk more at the end of this whole thing, but we're going to breeze through these top 10. There are some areas that are more prone than others, and we'll drill down on them. But it's safe to say, if you spend your day all day around a computer, you're probably in a situation where your job could be replaced by an AI, particularly call centers, things like that. We'll get more into that later. But yeah, right now, this is not like in 1998 when you said, hey, man, I don't need to have Gmail. I don't care about MySpace or any of those things, whatever the things that were going on for you in those days, if you were exposed to it. I don't need it in my job. Maybe you didn't. And you really didn't, depending on what you do and everything else. But this, again, is different. This is a reset. This is closer to horse and buggy meets car than typewriter meets or mail system meets email. All right. That was about just speed and information. This is about how to process it. And so this is now going up against our brain. So it's like brain versus brain. So we have to think about that. This is a different kind of beast that we're going up against right now. And I don't want to fearmonger saying beast, but you get what I'm saying. Let's move on to the second one here. For some reason, it's not going. There we go. This is why we have a little bit of an advantage as Gen X. Our experience becomes more valuable if we pair it with AI. You can say, hey, everybody out there, Gen Z, whatever, younger, millennial, whatever, they know more about AI. Yeah, they might know more about AI than you do right now, but you can learn that stuff. What they cannot learn is the experience that you've gained over 30, 40, 50 years, depending on how old you are and how long you've really been remembering stuff. But for the Gen X community, by the time, you get what I'm saying here. Your experience in knowing how to process information at a human level is still there, even though a lot of the actual analytics can now be done quicker. This is something that AI produces options for us. Experience eliminates those bad options. And that is the real key. We still have value there. Troy, hearing it like that, does it start to open up a little bit?
Yes, it does because I have kids that are in their 20s, and when I was their age, um, you experience was everything, and you look to your elders for kind of guidance. To where now I can't tell my kids really any more than what they can learn immediately from AI. So it's a lot faster pace now.
The speed of delivery of options is one thing, but the ability to be able to discern which is the best only comes with experience of having chosen things that have
Yeah.
major ramifications. A lot of us have had made choices in our lives that we later say, wow. And that opens up a complete new learning and a complete different way that we approach things going forward. And you cannot simulate that in AI. In AI, you can simulate what happened and then what happened after, but the why it happened, it could maybe get some psychological analytics on that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't know. It doesn't know the way that
Right.
we think, but we do not think anywhere near linear in a manner. And linear is everything, codes, everything AI is linear. We have non-linear reality in our head. So that non-linear that we have is our advantage. And that's the ability to see things from different angles. AI sees it from different angles of absolute truths in its head, but we have this other way that we do it, the human way, and it
Yeah.
can't replace that part. So,
No.
that really brings us to this next image here that we have for the third one, which is that this is about experience. It used to be a moat. Actually, excuse me. I got the wrong screen up here. AI replaces tasks. It doesn't replace judgment. This is basically what I was that was basically just saying right there. It can draft, but it cannot decide what matters most. In other words, like in my line of work, being a counselor, I work in substance abuse and things like that. You can put all the analytics, all the facts out there that you want, but you have to have the human element to be able to see what really is going on here because how do I want to say this? It's like, for instance, if you were to take just the metrics of, say, a drug and alcohol conversation, evaluation, a conversation by a counselor with an individual about a drug and alcohol situation, and they go through all the ASAM criteria. Sorry, I won't try to get too clinical here, but it's check boxes that you got to go through as far as questions, not literal check boxes. Some evaluations are done with check boxes. They have various metrics out there they use. There's all these different kind of DAST and all these kind of tests. That's a quick little term there, but there's lots of these things. And so when I see evaluations come into me for people that want to be a part of the practice that I work for, a lot of times we will see it written the way that we do it. Somebody typed it all out and they have all this and they've addressed all these various 6 criteria of the ASAM thing that I'm talking about. I won't go too far deep into that, but it allows us to assess where they belong in this whole process if they do it all. You could probably also do it just on those metrics of those checkbox questionnaires that you could say, these official tests that are recognized by medicine. And sometimes I see evaluations where there's like 2 paragraphs written by a counselor, and the rest of it is like 4 of these results from all these things. That could have been done by AI. And
Well,
it might even, and those first 2 paragraphs, if you're going to be that distant from it and just rely on that output, those first two paragraphs might even be better by AI, and the recommendation might be spot on because I've simulated this in our own customized AIs that we have for this kind of thing. Not that we do evaluations that way, but we check them sometimes. That's with this. And so my point being that we still have the ability to do the written evaluation in that one, like we do. We don't do evaluations anymore where I work, but when we did, it was never a checkbox. It was literally a typed out document that was like 3 pages long about the whole evaluation and where we felt they fit, and then a recommendation at the end. It was structured all correctly, but it was all human generated. And it was an open-ended thing. We're going to meet for, we'll start out with meeting for 10 weeks and see how it goes. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But today, if that AI were to spit that out, it would put a specific number of weeks. It would put all this stuff, and it might be accurate, but what it'd also do is remove the human from it. And so we're not going to depend on that. Nobody's going to want to have a drug and alcohol evaluation done strictly by an AI. And I'm just talking about the line of work I'm in, and so you're going to need the human there. And so that's to foreshadow what I'm talking about later. Those are the kinds of things that are different. But in that thing, back to what we were talking about earlier, if you connect what you currently do with AI, certainly in the way that I'm doing it right now with Valkyrie Counseling, my own project, my manuals that I put out now, sell them on Amazon, they have custom built by myself AI chat bots that are on the website that can actually answer questions of people that only has the information that I have provided it. It cannot search the internet. It cannot do any of that. It's just that. And it's very effective. And so that is how I put myself in the AI space that way. Of course, I did a lot of other training. I went out and got some certifications. I've been in this field for a long time. But that's the kind of thing that you need to be doing right now. And that's why it replaces tasks, but it doesn't, replace the judgment of the individual on what really is needed right now. Troy, judgment is not automation. How do you feel about that rant?
Well, it makes me wonder, what if judgment does become automated, or if AI can tell you the best conviction for certain crimes is this, on average, this is how many years you get for stealing, this is how many years, that the judge is no longer there, but the judgment is already in, that I don't know if that would be a good idea, but that's
No,
just,
no.
I don't see that happening, but that could be scary.
It is. I completely see what you're saying, and I've got a feeling that everybody out there agrees. But here's the interesting part about that. We like to say in the United States that we are a nation of laws, not of men, right? We have a law. It doesn't matter who you are. It applies to you. You can be rich, fat, famous. You could be a rock star. You could be on OnlyFans. You could be whoever the hell you want to be and have as much money as you want, according to the Constitution or your official documents. And the law treats you the same way, which by and large is the case. I mean, if you get busted and you're busted, you're busted. Whereas in other countries, like for instance, the one that I live in, laws are more like guidelines, and so they're flexible. All right. And I don't want to get into that discussion. But anyway, back to the laws of men in the United States. If you were to put it in the judicial system like that and just give it, see, it customized, AI, trained it only on, well, not trained it, but trained it on how to work, and then give it the information as its knowledge to look at as resources, or however you want to phrase it, depending on how you use AI. Of all of our codes, all of our judicial codes, it would be able to accurately go in there and say, okay, this person did this. It might even say they also did these things, and it might add in a few more, but it also might say these might not apply because you didn't prove it. I mean, it would be very efficient at that in that realm.
Your personal life is a database now, so.
Okay, that's getting more into the security part, but just sticking to the part where we're talking about a person in a courtroom or a court app or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That one, I mean, if anywhere, since we say we're a nation of laws and not men, it might be accurate there.
Yeah.
Because that's either following the law or not. But that's the difference. There's a difference though between that and say the drug and alcohol conversation with somebody about, evaluation, or a marriage counselor, and to get out of this, to a doctor that wants to operate on your brain. I mean, you're going to want a person there that understands that I love my mom and that, they've had to
Right,
bury friends and they, I mean,
right.
they're not just doing this because they have it exactly in their head, so there's some places where it's kind of creepy, man.
Yeah,
So it's just, don't tread on me on that one.
right.
But at the end of the day, right, there's no judgment involved in how to do a stitch on my arm. Okay. But I'd rather have a human doing it.
Yes, exactly.
And there might not be any judgment on whether or not I paid my traffic ticket on time, but I don't need a person to tell me that I got the ticket, I didn't pay it, and I need to pay it now, or else I go to jail. And AI could do that.
Yeah.
So judges and things like that, you might be in a situation where it's going to shrink, and we'll get more to the shrinkage. Little Costanza reference there. Here in a minute for our Seinfeld friends. All right, next we have, if you refuse this, if you turn this down, all right, now this would not be, for instance, Troy, because by the time that the internet rolled around for me in the mid 90s, I was doing things that led me there. And so it became important for me to sort of, go there. And I'm glad I did. For you, that was not the case. You eventually wound up, working with the railroad. It might even by the late 90s, you were working at the railroad, obviously. And so that was not something that was put in front of you. So, but if you worked in an office environment or you were trying to create anything new between, say 95 and 2002, and you did not hop on the internet and get going then, you missed the boat on at least knowledge of being ahead of the pack that would allow you to go forward. Now, that's not to say that anybody that came in later is not, whatever. There's people that just started 3 years ago that have YouTube channels that blow this one out of the water. I mean, it's crazy and it's good content. So it doesn't matter about really when, but in the long game, getting in early is huge. And so if you refuse this, if you take a Luddite approach, the Luddites, back in the 1800s, I don't know, Troy, if you're familiar with this, it was a movement that I think it began in Europe, but it was a big movement of industrial workers and things like that. I guess pre-industrial, but workers who would not work in factories that had any kind of automation because they thought it was eventually going to take their jobs. And
Yeah.
so that became synonymous back in the 90s. People started calling people that wouldn't adopt the internet Luddites. And so in those days, I used to, when people were asking me, you work for a .com, when I'd say I work for a .com, like 96, 97, and then they'd be like, oh, I'm not ever getting it. That would have been a Luddite then. And so this is not a good time to be a Luddite, because you could be a Luddite then. And Troy, I'm not saying you were, because it really didn't matter that much, depending on what you're doing.
Well, I
Now
did
it
watch
matters, particularly if after you watched,
a lot of people did
go,
fall out of careers because they wouldn't learn computer, retired early because they wouldn't, and they did become Luddites. Like this, yeah, I
right.
think,
Well,
if you're not up to, snuff, I guess, on this, you're gonna lose out.
right. I mean, it's the current working world. This is the guy that's freaking out because there's Model Ts and I still do horseshoes. What's going to happen to me? The tire store down the block is going to get all the business because their horses are made out of metal and they're going to last forever.
Yeah.
And then they go on strike. Well, that's great. That's great. I'm sorry. That's called evolution of, the whole thing that we're doing here. And as usual, the United States is leading it. It's tough on workers right now, but that's what we've always done. We've rarely paid much mind to the actual health of our own, without getting too much in the weeds on that. We are, the machine of America, being the people. So yeah, this is not the time. If you're looking to keep doing anything, if you're not already in a position where you're about ready to retire and you are in your 50s, early 60s, and you're not doing something that involves the letters AI, you're not going to probably be successful unless it is extremely specific and something that people love. Like, I don't know, selling particular brand of maple syrup, or doing a video online about how to fix a carburetor, which you would be using AI with, even if you didn't know it. And so if you knew it, it'd probably be that much easier to be successful at it.
What
So
about this
don't
thought that
be a
that
Luddite. Was that?
What about this thought that I've been paying attention to the demographics of a lot of countries that they're even China's saying our replacement level is getting low, it's getting scary. But I don't think people understand that perhaps that might be maybe the universe in control to where there really won't need to be as many people needed to replace populations with the upcoming, you know, job market going away.
I need a
Does that
I'm going to
make
open up a
sense?
notepad document here. Yes, it does, Troy. I'm going to open up a notepad because I want to make sure we come back to this. Okay.
All right.
Replacement theory. We're going to come back to this after we get through the top 10, folks. We'll go longer after we get through all this, but let's move on to the next one now. AI is a force multiplier for solo operators. If you don't know what a force multiplier is, I know that from being in the military. Force multiplier is when you add another unit, and together the two units actually make it much bigger than just them. So, for instance, if you had an infantry, platoon or whatever on the ground, and then you added in air support, now that's a force multiplier mega, because between the two of those, it's not just about having guns, it's not just about having bombs, but now you have complete control of the battlefield. And so it multiplies it. And then if you were to add in anything, it just makes it so much bigger. It's not like if you had an infantry, a platoon of infantry, and then you add another company of infantry. Well, yeah, that makes your force bigger, but it doesn't do it in the same way because you're still hitting it from the same angle. And so, that's not really the military terminology, but for you. And so, force multipliers is when you hit them from various directions, and it makes the entire experience so much bigger. Like, for instance, if you were to take the Grateful Dead, right, and you take the two guitar players of Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir, who both have very distinct styles. But when you put those two styles together, because they don't mirror each other, they make the magic of the Grateful Dead. And so when either one of them plays on their own, despite the fact they might have other guitar players with them or whatever, it's never the same. And so
Right.
that's a force multiplier. So back to how this can help us as a solo operator. We want to look at Gen X like we've always been. We're the ones who are supposed to be drinking out of garden hose, getting home, latchkey kids, all this other crap that people talk about on the internet, trying to make us famous or hate us for. I've seen a lot of anti-Gen X lately. What's all that about? But anyway, we've
Jealousy.
always been the side hustle generation. Jealousy. Okay. Now let's not pick a fight. Side hustle generation. All right. We've always figured out a way to do things, and we've always had multiple interests in things, and, I don't know if I'm a very good example overall, but I'm a ridiculously over the top example of it because I have literally different streams of revenue and things I do in my life that are not connected whatsoever. They have really nothing to do with each other. If people from the different areas, they have nothing to do with each other. And so that's just the way I've operated. I'm sure there's tons of people out there that do the same kind of things. And it could be something as simple as just diversifying what you do. All right. We've done things like website builders, garage entrepreneurs. These would be people, you've seen people out there. I made a joke earlier about a guy that does like carburetor videos. Those freaking YouTube videos explode. Even if you do a hands-on job, like you're a auto mechanic, it's almost guaranteed. If you get on there and really think about it and maybe use AI to help you come up with a good strategy on how to put it all out, on how to rebuild, like, I don't know, a 1975, whatever engine, just that video series will probably get you monetized. And then every additional one you do, and I'm not trying to be some YouTube expert here by saying, I'm just talking about the way this works. Everyone you do after that will just generate more. And if you wanted to see if I'm talking about, just go Google it. Go to YouTube and just put in there, auto repair guy, and you will see ridiculous amounts of followers. Every video has, 50,000, 200,000, and that person is making quite a bit off each one of those. And they're literally just have a camera pointed at what they already do. So they're getting
Brilliant.
paid twice for the same work. Yes. So that's the way we have to think about it. Whatever it is you do, even if you spend all day feeding horses, start a YouTube channel. You'd be amazed how many people would actually look at that. we talk about the stuff we do here. I thought I'd go over bigger, talk about Gen X music and all this, but really, there's so many of us out there that people don't really care. Well, and I'm not saying that for people that follow us. Some, people do care, but we're saturated in this market. But if you do something, if you have something that's a little bit eccentric, and start a YouTube channel, start talking about it, you'd be amazed. And that's just an example of that. Okay. And then we talk about the first wave of bloggers and the early YouTubers, but for us, that's now because suddenly Gen X has become somewhat sexy. This whole thing about, looking back to the early 80s and the mid 80s, depending on how old you are, and all that music. And you see these videos out there. Will the music of the 70s and 80s still be around 100 years ago when nobody remembers anything that was made sense? And I say no. Oh,
No.
yes, it will be around then, and nobody will remember anything between 90 and 2025, except for Kurt Cobain, maybe, or maybe a couple other things. But, I mean, really, seriously. Toby Keith, and things like that will fall in there. But by and large, compared to the old days, so to speak, especially in rock music, no, not at all. Rock itself, different. And so our early is now. That's why, for us talking about going to see Iron Maiden and Accept and Raven back in the day, we see replies from people that did the same freaking thing because it does what it does for us to them, I believe, which is remind us of just great times that we had and how good it was then. And not saying that we can't have fun now, but we can't have that fun anymore. So, we have to use whatever experience we have to talk about it in that way. I think that if you have anything significant to talk about, you could probably open up a YouTube channel, start there. That's the one that makes the most. People talk about all the other ones. Yeah, but still, YouTube is the future. And yes, I am also working on another project when it comes to YouTube, as far as putting channels together that feature like a daytime schedule of different YouTubers. And maybe we'll even have an hour in that once a week. Who knows? But I think that's the future of television. But so anyway, that's just an example of what I'm doing. Troy, just hearing that, I know I don't know, but I'm guessing that you don't have a real AI plan other than, I don't know. What have you thought about it?
I don't have a plan at all. I I've messed with making my own artwork with it, which just seeing how silly I could be with it, and it it produces this amazing artwork. That's about all I've done other than Chat GPT asking questions and getting answers. But no, I don't have a plan at all, and I
I think
really
Troy's
don't
getting
know
a
much
call.
about it at all.
Are you getting a phone call, Troy?
No,
I can't
no.
hear you anymore.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me
Having
now?
technical difficulties, folks.
I
I
don't know.
can't hear a word you're saying. Wonder what happened. You were there for a second. There you were.
Oh, here I am.
Now we're getting
Yeah.
psychedelic. All right. Let's at this point, we're gonna hold on for a second, folks. We're gonna get this figured out.
Am I now?
Okay, Troy, we have you back. So let's wrap up. We'll
I
wrap
don't know
up
what
this
happened.
force multiplier. I don't know either. Let's wrap up this force multiplier. I just wanted to say before we get out of here that one person can now do what 5, maybe more people could have done in the past. This is not This is not dystopia. This is leverage. Okay. This is something that we can cash in on. And we have to look at it like that. We're not in some kind of weird world that we can't understand that's not a part of us. We just need to adapt as we have always done, as Gen X is famous for. Right, Gen X? So moving on to the next one. The real divide isn't age, it's adaptability. All right. We have everything out there. The 25-year-olds are already obsolete to some degree, if you look at it like that. If you want to say age and responsibility and experience are the things, then if you're Gen Z or younger, you're kind of obsolete. The 58-year-olds are the ones that are building AI businesses right now. This isn't generational, it's psychological. We have a lot more sort of going on up there that we've been through. And so without sounding too harsh on our younger people out there, experience does work. And that's where things become like intelligence becomes wisdom. Wisdom is gained through experience. Intelligence is gained by reading and getting educated. You can do that as fast as you want, but you can't fake time and experience. And that's what we have. And so this is, again, you see at the bottom of this image, same kind of thing. We've been doing this stuff all along. So if we're going to sit here and say, oh my God, AI is coming for our jobs right now, what we're doing is we're sort of going back on our Gen X heritage, so to speak, and failing to adapt to changing times as we've always done, as I said at the outset. Troy, hearing it like that, does it sound sort of like a gut punch to Gen X, or a empowering statement to Gen X?
Man, well, I would hope it'd be an empowering statement, but I also think that because, well, Gen X, us, we had to adapt all the time, whereas the Gen Z, really everything was just kinda thrown to them, "Here's the ball." And I don't I know some Gen Z people that say, "I don't want anything to do with AI." And more so than I know Gen Z people that do wanna take it on. So I think Gen X people, our generation, could probably most likely adapt to it a lot easier, but then I'm not a Gen Z person. And, uh, and I don't know enough about AI to actually, you know, say I'm not even educated in it, so I'm not really adapting.
Basically, the AI world comes down to a handful of people. It's the people at OpenAI with ChatGPT, and then also their codexes for their codex project. 5.3 just came out, which is freaking amazing coding. It can
Oh,
code better than any living human coder. And then you have Google with DeepMind, which expresses itself in a limited version as Gemini. And then you have the people that make Claude, aka Anthropic, and which are the most safety minded of all of them. And they're the only one that's HIPAA compliant that I know of. And so the owners of these, the people that make the calls at these three are basically dictating to the world the way that reality is going to be for us in the future. And so the question is going to really come down to: are they going to ever prevent it from completely taking everything away from us? Like there's nothing any human can do anymore. And if that were the case, what are we going to have, some kind of universal income? And then how do we even base that? Does that mean if I sat on my ass in a trailer for the last 30 years, griping about everything else, smoking crack, that I should get a monthly stipend as much as the person that went to Yale and has been sitting studying gorillas in Africa for 20 years and contributing scientific, led to discoveries or whatever, or the guy that went to Afghanistan on 7 tours? I mean, who knows?
yeah, or
That's a little bit much, but still,
yeah,
but you get my drift.
that would
Right. I
be
mean,
a hard
how do
decision
we
to
even
make.
right, how do we quantify carbon? Hey, you, the owner of Google, you now make the same as the guy that's been out of work for 9 years, and hasn't seen his kids or whatever ever. And I'm not trying to paint a picture of a deadbeat versus somebody successful. And I'm not saying that somebody that's in that situation is necessarily a deadbeat. Life happens, man. Shit happens. And the person at the top, who knows? They might have been born that way. You never know. But the operative thing here is that we need to adapt to this thing as we have always done, regardless of that. As far as the universal income, how much of us would like that? It's like the idea of paradise. People talk about, dying and go to paradise. What does that even mean? I'm sitting on a beach forever with a pina colada that does not affect my liver, and I can just sit there and drink those. I mean, after 750,000 years of days of sitting on that beach, would I finally say, "Hey,
It
man,
would,
can I fix something? Is there anything? I don't
yeah,
know. Can I pick up some? I mean, can I do
right,
something other than be in paradise? Wouldn't that become
yeah,
boring as hell?
yeah. Paradise would become hell.
Prison. It'd be prison. It'd be prison with plenty of strawberries and champagne or whatever. I mean, it's like." So, I'm not meaning this some anti-religious context, but still, I mean, come on. It's like the idea of reaching perfection. What do I want to be? A painting on the wall that hasn't changed in 900 years just because everybody thinks it's perfect? No, man, life happens. We grow, we adapt.
Well, I
And
think
so
that's what
we
paradise
have,
would be, just continual
unlike
progression.
Right. So if you want to say the picture is perfect when it gets through the 20s, goes through college, say, gets educated, aka the young person today, that is a perfect picture of education. But for people like us, we did that perfect picture of education 30 years ago, maybe more, maybe less, depending. And so we've taken that same picture, but instead of leaving it as a Mozart on the wall and pointing and saying, look at what I did, we've continued to adjust that. We've changed the lighting. We've changed the picture a little bit. We've gone through life. And that part, AI can't simulate. And that part is most important for us to bring into this space. And that adaptability that we've had that allows us to make those corrections in the painting, so to speak, is what makes this an opportunity for Gen X and not something that we necessarily have to just look at and say, oh my God, here we go. Now we're, whatever, and just fold the tent and run. When have we ever done that? We haven't. Let's not
Yep.
start now.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
AI, so, and this is what I'm getting at. AI is going to expose who actually thinks, right? All right. So we have the situation where we can either just sit here and read everything that's out there and watch all these videos. I mean, seriously, type into YouTube search AI 2027 takeover of jobs. You will see a mountain of videos out there just because one story came out. This guy wrote a post about a week ago where he outlined this, and it's an outstanding. I'll put it in the description below. It's a pretty damning. This guy's an insider, top level of AI. He just resigned, as did another person, the person in charge of security, safety at Anthropic, which was the most safe of them, and he left due to concerns, which is kind of weird when your chief ethics officer leaves and you're supposed to be the most ethical. But anyway,
that's kind of scary, actually.
It is kind of scary. That just happened on February 3rd, and this guy wrote this thing on like February 9th. And so that caused an enormous amount of videos to come out. And of course, now we're flooded with, oh my God, Gen X, everybody else, we're all screwed. We're all going to be out of work in 20, and maybe that happens. But we also were told that we could get blown up by a nuke at any time. We could die by COVID at any time. We could have terrorists come and blow up our town. Do you remember? I remember talking, might have even been you, Troy, during the COVID times, or excuse me, during the, this is during the COVID times. When the Black Lives Matter things was going on, people in small town USA were like putting up perimeters around their town thinking that Black Lives Matter was going to come and like protest in their town and they had to protect it. And I remember there's one little town in Southern Illinois where this was actually happening. And I was like, my God, do they really think that in Effingham, Illinois, they're going to have people descend on their city and have this crazy march and trash downtown? Of course, none of this shit ever happens. Do you recall that time? Did you have a similar story?
Yeah, I remember guys getting guns, but they're all trigger happy. They wanted it to happen. Bring your protest here, fellas. We're ready.
Right. And see, that is the person that's not going to do this because that person is not thinking. Okay, that person is not thinking. It's just like, I remember when 9/11 happened, I'm in Athens, Georgia. We get a phone call from my then partner's grandma who lives in a small town in southwestern Pennsylvania in an apartment, in a building. And everybody in the building had gone down to the ground floor and went outside in case it was attacked by terrorists.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
So that's not thinking it through. We are not high value targets. And so I'm not going to just get too deep in the weeds on all that, but we've seen this shit before. We've seen all this overreaction before. And yes, this is serious, as I was talking about at the beginning. This is not like, this is closer to 9/11 than it is to the arrival of the internet. 9/11 changed so much about the way this country really operates.
Well,
Online helped. But right now, Troy, go ahead.
A lot of that was fear of the unknown, and I think that might be a lot of AI right now. Is we don't really understand nor know, so fear kicks in, like the what if, we don't know anything. Right. So I think it's fear of the unknown is what scares people about AI right now.
Absolutely. Everybody's afraid of the dark. And even if they're not, they're afraid of that part where they can't see the future, which is like walking off a cliff, which again is effectively the dark. And so if they can't see what's coming, that fear has been there forever. It's a lot of the
Yeah,
reason why people think like, oh, I could never leave the United States and move to Colombia like Steve did because he's blah, blah. And then they started with their whole list of excuses. Those are just excuses of why they're afraid of the dark. And
yeah.
because in this instance, there's nothing scary in the dark. You can make an educated decision. But if you just willy-nilly just let your emotions run away with you, like the guys that were trigger happy you were talking about, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you actually think it through, if you're sitting in small town Pennsylvania on 9/11 in an apartment thinking you're getting attacked by terrorists, if you're sitting in Alton, Illinois, or wherever you might be, or Sandusky, Ohio, wherever it might be, uh, and you're trigger happy, waiting to be attacked by Black Lives Matter in 2022 or whatever it was, that's not thinking. And so if you're just now looking at AI as the next big bad beast that's coming to take over, the Demogorgon, you could say then they mispronounced that. It's Demogorgon, by the way. But in Stranger Things, the Demogorgon, um, again, you're just freaking the fuck out. Got to settle down on this stuff and think about it. Think about ways that you can adapt and overcome. This is something that we've done. It's built into our bones. We brag about being able to run around until the street lights came on or later, or mom and dad not being home and we had our own key under the mat or whatever. The door wasn't even locked in those days. We drank out of garden hoses. You know all the tropes, right? So let's live up to that and let's continue just like we did. We walked in the house when mom and dad weren't home and didn't freak the F out because nobody was there to give us the remote or make us a ham sandwich. We did it ourselves. We figured out how to do it. We made a new kind of ham sandwich, And so, right, we added something crazy to it, So let's keep doing that. That was us thinking. It was left to us to use this part. And then we use this part as we wanted to. Today, this part is being compromised by the lack of experience in that part, if that makes sense to wrap it up. In other words, people, we have an advantage in being through this and being trained basically by our conditions to operate this way. We don't need to toss in the bag now and start complaining. The emotional reaction to AI is the real risk, which we're just talking about. Fear, anger, dismissal, conspiracy. Every major technological leap triggered panic. Printing press, electricity, television, internet. Gen X has lived through moral panic cycles. Okay, these all didn't happen with us. I listed a bunch that did. But we've already made this point, Troy. When you think about this here, it's an emotional resistance is not a strategy. Strategic adoption to it would be. All right. Panic obviously doesn't do us any good. Do you have anything more to say on that? You've already chimed in on it, but
Yeah, I think
seriously, just looking at the risk.
adapting is what our generation has done, and as far as adapting, and the invention of the car, my grandfather on my mom's side always thought it was rude to pass somebody in your car, and whenever but any interstate comes along, he thought it was rude for people to pass him, so he would speed up. Well, that comes from the day of when he was a younger kid in the horse and buggy days in the early part of the 20th century, where you did not pass somebody because it kicked up dust, and it was rude to pass somebody when you had a horse and buggy. But you
Yeah.
adapting with the automobile, it was okay to pass somebody once you had an interstate system and automobiles. The adapting to that changed the idea of whether you can pass somebody or not is rude. And I think adapting to everything, including AI, like we're talking about, is key to Gen X. We've always adapted, like you were saying.
Right. And we're at the perfect time. We're not, and this is not a dig at the boomers. Hold on, I'm going to adjust a thing here. I was not going to disconnect this. Our cognitive space is clear. I'm not saying theirs isn't, but as you get older, it starts to change. Although the boomers are going to be fine for quite a while yet, as we will be. We're entering our 60s. Some of us, Troy turned 60 today. I turned 60 in November. By the time we experience, for normal people, any amount of cognitive decline, it might be into our 80s potentially. Think of that. We're talking about the time equivalent now from 60 to say 80 for you would be like going back to just 2005, 2006. and if we
Well,
live
yeah.
into our 80s now, we can say we're going back into even to the 90s. And so if we look
Well,
at
you
it
think
like
about
that, like, geez, I am effectively right now in age. If I started at this age, between now and the time I die, say I die today, it's effectively the year 2000. That's how long I have. So I'm going to
well,
do
yeah,
what?
I was listening to the radio yesterday or 2 days ago, 3 days ago. I can't remember what day it was this week, and it was talking about this is the 40th anniversary of when Cliff Burton, the original bass player for Metallica, died, 40 years ago. Holy cow! Because the only time I ever saw Metallica, Cliff Burton was playing. So, and that just seems like yesterday, 40 years ago.
Right,
In
right,
another 40 years, I'll be 100 years old, and that's going to go quick, quick, quick. So, again,
right,
back to adapting, you have to adapt quick, fast.
right. And even if you don't make it to 100, if you make it to 85 or even 80, it's just that's
Or
an amazing amount of
61.
time still to go. Well, shit. Of course, yes. There's always that. I mean, for us, it's always to wake up. That's been my mo for 15 years now. If I only get to wake up tomorrow, literally what I told myself for 10 years while I was terminal. But yeah, we never know for sure on that. But I'm just saying for Gen X people out there that don't have, like myself, or like both of us, liver transplant survivors, or myself, cancer survivor, still with some significant health complications because of that. But they're not going to really themselves, although I'm probably going to need another transplant, kidneys. But that won't be probably for a couple of years. But they're already starting to fail as a result of the liver. That's the joke is 5 years after a liver transplant, you get a kidney transplant because the
Yeah.
immunosuppressants that we take for liver are so harsh on the kidneys. Troy, I just bought some new supplements specifically for the kidneys. I'm hoping that helps, but I've already started to have some issues there. And I'm in year 6 after transplant, or 7, 2019. When was it? January 3rd, 2019. 7. I'm 7. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, so anyway,
what?
we'll hope for the best on that. But yeah, see, and that's life, man. That didn't happen to me. That happened because of the way I went through life. Whatever it was I exposed myself along the way led to that. And I'm not trying to say the world just doesn't randomly happen to us as we go in by. We're not trying to catch a cold, but still we were in the room. And if we can accept that piece of the action, then at least we have some authority of what to do now going forward. We have some control over it, gives us a little leverage. So if we get rid of that emotional reaction, oh my God, I'm screwed, I've got this thing, or now it's AI, or whatever, even cancer or transplant. If we buy into the fact that we're dead, we are.
Yes. I think that
Mic
was the one good thing about that is accepted that your day's coming. It's just makes
Yeah,
life easier for me at least to know I made it through
right.
that, and it's
It's
just shortened up a
depending on how
bit.
you do it. We could have another complete conversation about the way we both approach that, but effectively it's the same way. I can't
Yeah.
change the outcome by their metric, but I can change what I'm doing between now and the end of my days, regardless of their metric. And so, again, that's kind of convoluted in the way I said that. We'll re-talk about that in another video as far as our approach to being transplant survivor and transplant itself. All right, moving on to our last one. This is our last great leveling up opportunity. I mean, who knows? Maybe AI is going to get replaced in 15 years, and this will happen again, but I doubt it. Look at just so you no
I
longer
can
need
imagine what that
right
would
now.
be.
Well, that's when it gets general AI, and all of us are just, I don't know if we turn into the Matrix, but
Yeah.
so compression rewards the adaptable. Troy, what do you think about that statement?
Yeah. Um, Again, I agree with that you you just you're gonna have to have these skills to be successful, period. But
Right.
I don't know what else to say about that, really.
Let me unpack it a little bit for anybody that's not clear on the way that I'm phrasing that. When I use the term compressing skill, what I'm talking about is that Say in my work, what I'm doing is that I need to figure out how much somebody owes on their account, where they're at in their treatment progress, and all these various things to give them a full picture of where they are. And I could go through all this time or consult all these people, or I could just get their current billing information, say their treatment plan, say their attendance, collection of progress notes, get all those together, attach them into, upload them into our customized AI. Not that I'm doing this, I'm to say this example, but we have replicated this, but we don't do this with clients. Um, and then put it in there, that would give me all of the factual information I needed. So I would not need to depend on sending out to the person in billing. They wouldn't even be there. All these things would be gone. Okay. So I would compress all of those skills down to just what I need. And that's where we come in because we know how to use that information because we've seen it before, particularly if we work in the line of work I'm looking at. Okay. Now, for starters, we don't do this in what I'm doing. It's just easy for me to use it as an example because I talk a lot about this when it comes to healthcare. So, say that's the case, right? I just removed all that stuff. So now you could have a counselor being able to operate more or less independently, just doing their stuff. And if they're trained well and have worked a long time, they're doing fantastic and they don't need an office staff. All right. And so that's just that. And that could apply to any given scenario. But you couldn't do that just out of college. If you just went through all of your supervision time and all this other stuff you had to go through to become a licensed professional social worker, LSPC, then that's wonderful. You might be 28 years old and you've got a little bit of experience, but you don't have the same experience as somebody that has that same job and they're age 50 or 55 or even 45. And so if you're given that same set of information that AI can give you right now, if it's compressed like that, you have it on your plate. What are you going to do with it? And now you've got this other person with their on their plate, one of us, a Gen X person. We're probably going to treat it a little bit differently. Is it going to be better? Depends on the person. Most likely it should be. If we've been in this business for a long time, we're still saying we're good at it. We should be able to make a better product. And that is going to be the survivors of the Gen X community. Those of us, and say, I'm going to stick to the counseling world just because that's what I'm in. But those of us that know how to take that AI information and still apply the human level to it, we're going to be here when every other counselor out there today that's still trying to figure out how to get a BBA to get their Zoom HIPAA compliant is still figuring that out. Stuff that we did 10 years ago, maybe longer, depending. They're going to be looking for work. And people like myself will, well, I'm not saying I'm doing this for my own security because I'm actually getting out of healthcare in general, but those kinds of scenarios will replicate across business. And so if you are in one of these things, you need to be out there. And I say need here. All right. There's wants and there's needs. Wants are things that are wonderful to have. Needs are things that we need. We have to have. All right. I need food. I want pizza. Okay. And so that out of the way, this is something that we have to do right now if we intend on having another kind of income going forward. If we don't have a retirement that is set up to take us forever into whatever lifestyle we need to just sail off, fine, do that. Definitely check with your advisors on how that's going because that's currently a circus as well. But if you do want to have another form of income or just general income or a couple of side gig incomes that equal an income, attaching anything, any training, any certifications, any kind of looking into it, using AI, the best $20 investment you can make right now for advice would be to go to OpenAI. And this is not an ad for them. All right. I am not advertising. I'm not associated with them whatsoever. In fact, I'm not really 100% in favor, but they are the best. If you pay the $20 and get their professional version of ChatGPT, you're going to get a much better version of it. You're going to have access to so many more tools. You're going to be able to make projects, have agents, all this kind of stuff. That is the best $20 investment you can make right now. It's even better than going to Coursera. It knows everything out. The Coursera, of course, is a place you can go online and get official certificates. I got my Google I got my Google Project Manager thing through there just because everybody wanted to see that, and I got some ethics things through there, certifications. But that's the best coach out there because it knows everything that's on Coursera and everything that's in Wikipedia and every article that's ever been written by humans. And and it's very good, and it doesn't hallucinate. This is not 2023, 2024. The latest editions of these things are solid. They do great work, and they're only getting better exponentially. When they come out with a new release, it is like ridiculously much better. It's not just a little bit of enhancement. It's like in the old days when they change word and okay, now it looks nicer. No, now it'd be a completely different thing, but much better. And so that would be my advice from somebody that's been in this now. I've been working online for 28 years, or whatever it's been since 96. It looks like 30 years, but it's not, because I didn't become profitable until 98. That's when I really consider it the beginning. And then in the last 10 years, getting into the AI with applications. So I've actually by default sort of been ahead of the game a little bit in this. So I speak from it like that, but like Troy, you've never been in a situation where you've had to rely on any of these things to any degree. I mean, maybe some light computer stuff when you're working at the railroad, but like spreadsheets and stuff like that has probably not been much. And that might be the same situation with a lot of people out there. So if you're looking to do anything to level up right now, I'd start by just going to OpenAI, buying their actual thing, and then coming up with ideas and talking with it about it, letting it know what you want to do. What do you want to do next? It will be able to give you some great guidance, much better than any coach you're going to find online right now. Guaranteed. And I'm talking specifically just about what to do in the world. If you have, problems, actual need coaching or counseling, that's different. But if you just want information, if you want to compress every tool that humanity has, it's right there for you. You will have access to the best information in the world right there at your fingertips. So the best thing how many times can I say best? I'm gushing now just about OpenAI because I think they're the best at it. But to me, that is the way that we need to go for folks out there in Gen X that don't know what to do next. Start out by getting to know AI if you don't know it already. And if you want to know more about it, ask it. That $20.
I'm jotting down notes as you're speaking. Okay, yeah, here we go.
But I mean, seriously, it sounds trite. And there's going to be people out there saying, oh, ChatGPT sucks. Well, whatever, dude. Whatever. I mean, yeah, you're always going to find the random thing that happens. And you're always going to have the people that say, well, ChatGPT told some dude to kill himself. Yeah, well, that might have been 2 years ago, which in AI time means the time of the pharaohs as far as how much things have changed. And it probably also has to do with prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is something you're going to hear a lot about. That's how you ask questions, the best way to ask questions. And so if you ask a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer. I've seen people argue with AI, like in voice mode. You're arguing with a machine that is trained on articles and encyclopedias and God knows what else. And it doesn't have an opinion. It's just coming back whatever it has. And
you have to be specific. The more specific you are in the question, the more accurate the answer is going to be. Like if you want to talk about poison, what's the best poison song? Poison is not a song, you're acting.
Well, actually,
poison is dangerous for your health.
Hey, I'll tell you what, Troy, let's test that out. Let's test that out right now. I'm going to open up a browser.
Tell me about poison.
I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I'm going to do it right now. Oops, wrong one. All right, folks, this is on a different account that I have as far as the OpenAI thing. Let me go to this. Okay. What can it see over here? Okay, I'm trying to get too much information. All right, I'm going to move this window over here. Sorry, folks. This is live. This is the end of the time. Anyway, we're already over an hour. Wow, we're actually at an hour. So if you want to leave, you can leave. Session's over. Sounds like one of my sessions I do. But all right, look at this. What did you just say was going to be the answer? What was the question?
What's the best Poison song? Is Poison a song?
There you go. Every rose has its thorn. Nothing. See, look at that. There is no best Poison song. There is only the one that activates your particular 1980s neural circuitry. Poison wasn't trying to be Rush. They weren't composing prog suits about their interstellar ethics. They were building arena-sized dopamine delivery systems with Aquanet propulsion. So the best song depends what access we're measuring. If we were measuring pure pop craftsmanship, every rose has its thorn. Acoustic intro, clean melodic art, clear emotional hook, massive crossover appeal. It's structurally tight. It works stripped down. It still works today. From a songwriting standpoint, it's their most endurable piece. If we measure raw glam metal electricity, nothing but a good time. This is the thesis statement for the hair metal era. It's not subtle. It's not introspective. It's a declaration of hedonistic survival. The riff is punchy. The chorus is chantable. It was engineered for sticky floors and raised fists. If we measure cultural impact, talk dirty to me. That riff instantly recognizable. It particularly defines late 80s MTV swagger. It's the one that most people can identify in the first 5 seconds. Now let's zoom out. Poison wasn't about technical mastery. They were about vibe chemistry. They captured a moment where excess still felt innocent, right before grunge walked in with a flannel shirt and existential dread. So here's the slight nerdier take. I love that. Here's a slight nerdier take. The best Poison song is the one that survives unplugged in a living room with no backing track and still makes people sing along. That problem makes every rose has a thorn the most objectively resilient. But if we're talking about the song that is most purely represents Poison and the Phenom, that's Nothing But a Good Time. And the tension between those two answers is the entire band. Hair metal gets mocked now. It was performed in an important cultural function. It gave working class kids permission to feel big for 3 minutes at a time. That's not trivial. That's psychological wrapped in distortion. Now, the real philosophical twist, the best song, is often just the one you heard at exactly the right age when your identity was still molten. That's neuroscience. That literally is habit formation in neural pathways. Neuroscience more than music criticism. The brain loves soundtracks for becoming. It also establishes homeostasis. And Poison understands that, even if they never wrote it down in a manifesto. So there you go.
There you go. See, Gen X,
What was
AI
the other question
is
you said?
good.
Ask me, what was another thing you've heard somebody say on the internet that they asked AI and they gave them some bullshit answer?
Oh, can civilization survive without men?
Short answer, no. Long answer, let's think carefully, not drift into slogan territory. Okay, we're not going to go through the whole thing,
No.
but right there, no.
That's a good answer.
So I know, and I see this shit all the time. Oh, ChatGPT said I should jump off with the devil and die and kill myself. And what the hell did you do to get it so twisted to give you an answer like that? Because it won't give you an answer like that.
All right,
with normal
what's the
encounter.
best way to jump off a building and live?
Right. That's like, you remember the whole drug years, right? If some people that smoked marijuana in the 70s, they're going to jump off of buildings thinking they can fly. How many times did that happen?
Reefer madness, man.
Exactly. So, I mean, fear around all this stuff is natural in the way that it's presented. And of course, the media just loves clickbait, and anything you're afraid of or love, they're going to talk about. And the things you love, they're going to tell you how other people are trying to hurt it. And the things that you hate, they're going to tell you about other people that hate it as well and show you the worst example of those people that are doing that action. That's just the psychology around news. I had 17 years in the news world, and that's exactly how we operated. So just to be clear on that, Troy, that's about it. We're done.
No final thoughts at all. I need to learn more about chat. I need to know more about AI. I'm going to start learning more about it. That's my final thought.
All right, everybody, I am red today because I've been out in the sun a lot. We have the yard work people here, and I was outside in the morning, so forgive if I'm going to deal with this later. But for Troy, I'm Steve, the Gen X Transplant Bros here on the channel. This is the Free Will Burning Podcast. We'll be back next Friday when we will have a guest on, another one of our guests from the past. And so until then, take it easy. We'll see you then, man.